entered Conservator Nation. Not politically correct, no participation trophies, just conservatism well articulated.
Hey there, folks. This is Jeff Peterman coming at you here with another episode of Conservator Nation. Looking forward to getting to an interview with Rebecca Johansson Bidlack later on in this episode. She, when elected, I firmly believe she will be the youngest member of Congress, as well as, I believe, the youngest ever woman elected to the position. So that should be a very interesting interview. I hope you guys enjoy it. Today, the topic, very important one, is our nation and the financial mess that we're in. I think it's really important to address this now as we're going into the 2016 election in November, knowing that we are going to have either Hillary Clinton, Donald Trump, or very slim chance of Gary Johnson. I just want everyone to be able to know and to hear what is really at stake moving forward as we go into the next phase of our nation's history. When we talk about financial issues in the country, a lot of times we talk about national debt. And that's an important number. I think we need to be talking about the fact that we're coming up on $20 trillion of national debt and what that really means. The fact that when you look at our budgeting each year, that 80% of it goes to just paying the interest on that debt and mandatory spending, I think is pretty relevant. But a number that the media ignores, kind of goes right past, you very rarely will ever even hear about it, is going to be the unfunded liability number. And this number is closer to a couple hundred trillion. And it, quite frankly, is simply unsustainable. So I think that it's important that we start looking at real numbers in this country. When it comes to the unemployment rate, not looking at the unemployment rate that they tell us, this 5% or under, coming up on full employment. That's a ridiculous number. When you have 96 million people that are out of the workforce, that unemployment number doesn't take into account whatsoever those people who have just absolutely given up. And so we need to start actually taking a look at this failed president that we have right now, as well as, in my opinion, the failed president that we had before him, who really set the table for the power grabs and the shredding of the Constitution that Barack Obama has really implemented fully. George W. Bush, unfortunately, was a big part in laying that foundation so that he could. So, before we get into anything else here, I want to do a couple housekeeping issues. First of all, make sure that you follow us on Twitter. It is a absolutely, I'm on there all day long. So at Jeff, the letter J, Peterman, Petermann, that is going to be... Pardon me, folks. I have something coming in here. Okay, we'll talk about that later. That is going to be my Twitter handle, so I encourage you to go ahead and follow me there. We're also on Facebook. We have a website coming up very soon. It'll be conservator.com, and really is going to set the table for as we move forward into past 2016 toward 2018, and the elections that hopefully we'll be able to take part in and being a part of really championing liberty there. So make sure that you follow us on all the social medias out there, and also you can reach me at jp@conservator.com with any questions that you might have, really with anything that you might like me to talk about. Go ahead and send it to me there, and we'll make sure to do our best to get it on the air. So back to finances. What are we to do? What are we to do about getting things back to where they need to be in our country, so that we aren't heading toward a fiscal cliff that we'll never come back from? Well, there's several things. First of all, we need to figure this piece out in Congress about the pork barrel spending, the putting 10 to 15 issues in one bill, that kind of stuff benefits nobody but the Congress people. They're able to sneak stuff past. They're able to negotiate spending the American people's money on things that it should not be spent on. It's a travesty that we don't have more in Congress that are standing up to this kind of absolute disgusting egregious wasting of the American people's dollars. We have, I think, one bill that had been proposed by Mia Love several months back, and it was the one at a time bill where we would vote on one issue at a time. I think that's the way it has to be, because when you end up voting on these ginormous bills, unfortunately, and I know many of you know this, but I'm just going to confirm your worst fears. Your Congress people aren't reading these bills, folks. And what happens when you vote on a bill that you haven't read is you get Obamacare. And then you end up having the destruction of the middle class in our country because of taxes and fees and all of these things that really were meant to, quote unquote, help people, that end up hurting the people, the very people that they were meant to help. So that definitely is one thing that needs to happen when it comes to spending less dollars. Now, another thing, and I'm probably not going to be super popular for saying this with some folks that are listening, we really have to take a look at our defense spending. I'm not saying we need to lessen the money we're spending on our national defense, because I don't think that we should be doing that. What I think needs to happen right now is we need to reprioritize where these dollars are going. The simple fact that we have dollars that are being spent on F-16 fighter jets for countries that, quite frankly, should be on the state-sponsored terror list, how is that even happening still? And I think it's because the American people are giving our government the benefit of the doubt, but the problem comes into the fact that the government hasn't earned our benefit of the doubt. The government takes a mile when we give them, 10 feet every single time, and they point us towards these things to divert our attention, I guess thinking that we are into shiny things and squirrels, so we're not going to be actually looking at what they're doing. Things like Zika virus and Ebola and all these different things, right? Shooting an ape. All the while, they are doing things that they don't want us to know about. So we need to be able to keep our elected officials accountable. We need to call them on a regular basis, and we need to make sure that they understand that we know the amount of spending that's happening and that we're not okay with it, and that these dollars that are literally just being wasted each and every day need to stop. And we need to start using the primary system as a way to hold them accountable in a form of term limits. If we have Congress people who no longer represent the people who are the boss, we are their bosses. If they're not representing us, then we fire them and we get somebody else in there. And if those people don't represent us, we fire them. And we continue down the road until we get people in Congress representing us, both at state level and in D.C., that get the fact that they're the hired help. And they start to help us ensure that our children and grandchildren aren't going to be so shackled with national debt that they will not be able to have more than we did. For the first time in history, that is a real possibility here in the United States. And it makes me sad that I look at my children and think about when they grow up that they may not have it as good as me and my family do now. So anyway, I definitely want to get into this interview with Rebecca Johansson Bidlack. She is a fascinating person. I think you guys are really going to like this. I will apologize right now. I'm learning the editing process on these audio recordings, and there are some audio glitches. Actually, there's two of them, so you're probably going to hear a little skip somewhere right at the about 3 to 4 minute marker, and it's not going to make a whole lot of sense. Just kind of look past that, if you will, and listen to what she's saying, because she brings up some really good points. She spent some time with the Coalition to Reduce Spending. I actually, when I ran for Congress, sat with her and signed a promise, a contract, if you will, to not vote yes on anything that would increase our country's spending. I think she has a good head on her shoulders, and I think she'll be right for our nation. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this here. Enjoy this interview, folks, and we'll see you on the other side. Rebecca Johansson Bidlack. First of all, did I say that right?
You did. You did a great job. Most people struggle with it on the first time.
Awesome. Why don't you go ahead and tell us real quick? I know that you have a history with a few different really liberty organizations, but you're running for office right now. Maybe tell us a little bit about what you're running for, and then maybe a little bit about your history.
Sure. Well, I am running in the open seat here in Florida's 1st Congressional District. So it's my hometown, and the seat's been held by the same incumbent for the past 16 years, and he's now retiring, leaving the field wide open. And so I am in my hometown running a very strong grassroots campaign and very excited about that. And the reason, of course, is not just because I'm running for the point of running. I'm running to do something. And the biggest thing for me is kind of spending it back and getting government down to its proper role. Like you mentioned, I have a background working in small government and liberty causes. I was in college state chair of Young Americans for Liberty here in Florida. And for the past 3 years, I've been director of outreach for a group called the Coalition to Reduce Spending. What we do is we're a single-issue advocacy organization that works to put federal candidates and elected officials on the record with spending and debt and hold them accountable when they break their promises, as well as educate the public on why these issues matter to begin with. I think we have a long way to go on both fronts, but I really see the debt and spending as a leading indicator of a government that's completely out of control, and so we need to stay kind of elsewhere or to vote for unbalanced budgets, or to pledge not to vote for unbalanced budgets, of course, that is. And we see this as, it's not going to save everything, but it's certainly a good place to start. If we can at least get people on the record to consider all spending open for reduction and to not keep adding more to that, I think that would go a long way toward fixing this problem that my generation is confronted with.
Absolutely. I know a lot of times we hear people talking about the national debt, but there's an even bigger number, and that's the unfunded liabilities. Can you talk a little bit to that and kind of what our nation is facing in that realm?
Yeah, I mean, the debt is just the starting point, really. It's like the tip of the iceberg. Unfunded liabilities of these major programs are in the hundreds of trillions by some estimates, and at least much, much more than the $19 trillion number that we see, which is in itself mind-boggling. The way that I talk about these issues when I'm talking to voters in the 1st District is that the debt is not necessarily just some big scary number. Of course, these liabilities do have negative toll on the economy, and they can slow economic growth and threaten some sort of economic crisis if things get out of control, like we've seen in places like Puerto Rico. But it's also a sign that government is out of control to begin with. The debt is a problem, but if the debt were lower and government were still out of control, that would still be a problem, right? And so it's something that we need to attack at its source and get government back in its proper place.
Excellent. So going a little bit to a different topic here, one of the other issues that kind of splits liberty activists is abortion. How do you feel about the Planned Parenthood videos that were released last year, and would you vote against any appropriation that included Planned Parenthood funding?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as a libertarian, any libertarian, no matter where they are on the issue of abortion, should support government involvement in an issue like this, and particularly not federal government involvement. And of course, I am pro-life, and I've always been pro-life. And I think that's really consistent with the liberty philosophy, because life is one of the first things that government can, one of the only things government can ensure. And if we can't protect life, what else can we protect?
Awesome. Great answer. So getting a little bit personal here with a guy that you know, probably. What is your opinion of Paul Ryan? Would you be inclined to vote for him as Speaker, or would you be inclined to vote for someone else?
Oh, that's a tough question. I mean, I think it would be hard to say what or who I would vote for until I was there. I'm a big fan of Mr. Ryan's work on trying to rein in entitlement spending and offer a positive vision for what that should look like. I don't always agree with him when it comes to other parts of the budget. He hasn't always been consistent for Pentagon spending, for instance. But I think, generally speaking, if we had more people who were closer to Paul Ryan than more to Harry Reid or something like that, we'd be in a much better place.
Amen to that. I think one Harry Reid is about one too many, so that we agree
well,
there.
I agree with you there.
Now, you would be the youngest member of Congress in the country if you're elected. How would you respond to the? Yeah, how would you respond to the criticism that you may lack experience compared to other opponents? Now, I'll tell you, I've done some research on your history, and I think you have more experience than most people. But obviously, that's probably going to come up.
comfortable with that question. It's understandable for people to ask. And the first thing that I would say is I think the founding fathers knew what they were doing when they set the age requirements. You know, if they thought it should be something different, then they would have put that in the Constitution. And a lot of the founding fathers themselves were, in fact, pretty young. And I'm certainly not a founding father, but I think that I can do a good job regardless of age. And in fact, I think that my age is an asset because I have the most at stake when it comes to the things that our government is doing, and my generation does. And so we have such an opportunity for the young generation, for the younger generation that has our future mortgaged to the hill to get up and do something about it. And so, like I say, age is pretty arbitrary, but some of the accomplishments and what they stand for isn't. And so I would hope that voters in the first would look at what I'm about and what I've worked on and make up their mind based on that. And also would be pretty excited to elect the youngest woman in history to Congress. I think that would be pretty exciting for the first district to hold that record.
Definitely. In a country right now that's almost obsessed with these historical elections and electing somebody like Barack Obama twice, who absolutely wasn't qualified, I think it would be a refreshing change of pace to elect somebody who is qualified like yourself and set that type of a precedent in our country, I guess would be a way to put it. So.
Yeah, I think so too. My race would be historic. I would be the first woman to represent my district in Congress, and like you talked about, the youngest woman ever in Congress. But most importantly, I want to make history is by cutting spending and getting government under-relied in a way that it hasn't been for quite some time.
Absolutely. Awesome. So what does a first year for you look like? What is and I know we talked a little bit about it, but maybe 3 or 4 priorities that you have when you first get to D.C.?
Well, I mean, it's hard to say what exactly will be on the agenda and who exactly will be in the White House, but I will say that my priority from day one will be reining in this out-of-control spending and debt and budgeting that is completely out of control. I mean, you say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And by that definition, our budgeting system has been completely insane for as long as I can remember. And I think there's a reason why Congress has trouble passing these budgets. And it's not just because politicians are terrible. It's also because the rules of the game don't really favor cutting spending. They don't really favor looking at waste. They don't really favor getting things done in a timely manner. And I think it's time that we should rethink those rules. If they're not working, we need to find rules that do, and rules that are simplified and streamlined and make it easier to actually cut spending and waste.
Awesome. So one more highly charged issue here, and I guess it incorporates a few things, but when it comes to the Supreme Court decision that nationalized gay marriage rights, and then obviously with Barack Obama and his edict with this bathroom situation in schools, how do you feel about these issues that are kind of going up against some of the religious freedom really stances that have been paramount to our country's history?
Yeah, I mean, I think you answered the question a little bit in your question. Religious liberty is one of the most important things that we can defend, and I would defend it 100%. And I think anyone who believes in liberty should believe in liberty for everyone, even if they don't agree with the religious, persuasion of those whose liberty you're upholding. I think it's absurd. Another big issue for my district is reforming the Veterans Administration and holding accountable these bureaucrats that have literally let our veterans die, just because he can't cut through the bureaucracy effectively enough. And the Obama Justice Department seems more concerned with where kids go to the bathroom and actually prosecuting these cases of complete malfeasance where our veterans have suffered. And I think there's a huge lack of prioritization here that we need to think about. And however you feel about the issue of bathroom policy, I think that most people should agree it shouldn't be done with top-down edicts from a president who has no regard for separation of power. It's completely absurd.
Absolutely. Well, hey, and I only have a couple more questions here, but a couple of the things that my dad always told me growing up, when you meet someone, how you can tell kind of who they are and who they might be in a leadership position is their favorite book and two or three people that they look up to. So I'm going to ask that in this situation with Congress, who are 2 or 3 people that you look forward to getting together with, aligning with, maybe working on legislation with, and then what is your favorite book?
Well, that might be the toughest question I've ever been asked in regards to my favorite book, because I love a lot. Of course, I grew up reading the Bible, and I think that's very important when it comes to political stuff. I'm a big Hayek fan, and pretty much anything that he's written, although I have to say that Needle Conceit is probably my favorite. And I guess I could dive into the question of who in Congress by starting and saying there are a lot of people that I would want to work against. There are a lot of big spenders in there that need to be opposed, and we need strong voices who will stand against them. And I'm a real advocate of working across the aisle and working with people who don't agree with you on the issues where we need to move forward. But we shouldn't forget that we have to stand up against big spending too. That being said, I'm a big fan of Chairman Tom Price and what he's done in trying to do optimistic spending reforms. I don't always agree with everything, but I think he's got the right idea when it comes to pushing forward an optimistic agenda. And I'm also a big admirer of the work of the House Freedom Caucus. Representative Justin Amash, who's endorsed me, is one of my role models, as is Senator Rand Paul and some others who really aren't afraid to hold the line and stand up for the Constitution and for liberty, even if it doesn't always make them popular.
Awesome. Those are some good names. I would agree with you there. So, if somebody wanted to get involved and donate to your campaign, how would they do that?
Yeah, so you can go to my website. It's Rebecca2016.com. Any spelling of Rebecca should get you there, but mine is REBEKAH. So it's not the easiest one, but that's just Rebecca2016.com. Check out my issues, check out my platform, and we would love if you would support our campaign as well. It's we're in a tough race, but I'm really confident about how things are going, and every amount really does help. I'm really excited so far by the progress I've seen.
Fantastic. Well, hey, thank you so much for talking with us today, and we'll be keeping a close eye on this race, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great talking with you.
Awesome.
Okay, back with you now. I hope you enjoyed that interview, listening to it as much as I did talking with her and doing that interview. And I do hope that you will go to her website and support her in any way that you possibly can. I can tell you from experience that when you're running for Congress, in U.S. Congress, which I just ran for, every dollar helps. You know what? And I'm sure that whether it's $1 or $100 or $1,000, that she will be very grateful. So I do want to go over a couple of votes here. They're in the past. But I think it has a lot, it really goes into this whole spending problem that our nation has. I'm going to look actually at votes that Jackie Walorski made, because she is our 2nd district in Indiana, U.S. congressional representative. She is the person that I just ran against, got 30% of the vote with only $2,500, and we did that in 90 days. Wish I would have had a little bit longer. I think we could have pulled this one out. But I'm going to continue to hold her feet to the fire, and I'm going to continue to bring up votes from the past that she shouldn't have made. And I'm also going to use this opportunity to just talk about the issues in general. But I will give you her vote on different pieces here. So, but in looking back at some of the votes that have happened really in the recent past, all the way into 2015, but in late 2015, even looking at something like the reform of the Exports and Expand the American Economy Act. Jackie Walorski voted yes on that. This bill, and I'm going to read this from the New American. It has everything listed out here. This bill, the Export-Import Bank Reform and Reauthorization Act of 2015 would reauthorize the Export-Import Bank's charter through fiscal 2019. Additionally, the bill would reduce the limit on the Export-Import Bank's outstanding loans, guarantees, and insurance from $140 billion to $135, as well as prohibit the bank from issuing new loans if the default rate reaches 2%. Under the new charter, the Export-Import Bank would be required to increase the amount of its financing dedicated to small businesses from 20 to 25% and be subject to Government Accountability Office audits every 4 years. I'm also going to give you their reason why this was a bad vote, her voting yes on this. The House passed H.R. 597 on October 27th, a vote of 313 to 118. They've assigned pluses to the no's because the Export-Import Bank is a poster boy for corporate cronyism. The government finances or insures foreign purchases from U.S. companies that commercial banks are unwilling or unable to finance, owing to the political or commercial risks inherent to the deals, leaving taxpayers on the hook in the event of default. Constitutionally speaking, the U.S. government should not be underwriting private businesses at taxpayers' expense, regardless of whether or not such businesses are small mom-and-pop companies. So I'm probably going to leave it just at that one right now because we are actually running out of time. I'm trying to keep these to 30 minutes. It's egregious because that is something right there that most people aren't even aware that vote took place. And yet right now, the American taxpayer is on the hook should things go wrong there. And that is not constitutional. We have a spineless Congress right now. And unfortunately, because they are not fulfilling their duty when it comes to the power of the purse, when they're not fulfilling any of their duties, really, and they're allowing Barack Obama to just go off the hook here and completely shred the Constitution, completely ignore the separation of powers, act as someone who is not only the top person in the executive branch, but he's also really writing legislation in a lot of ways. And then you also have the Supreme Court that is acting as an activist court at this point, and they're shredding the separation of powers. And the real missing piece here is Congress. They are not caring about the fact that those two other branches of government are not caring about the separation of powers. And because of that, they're allowing it to happen without pushing back. So I'm going to end this today and with kind of a challenge to everyone. Find out who your congressperson is, find out who your senators are, and call them. Get those numbers programmed into your phone. In my phone, there is programmed Jackie Walorski DC office. And guess what? Over the next 18 months, depending on what happens, I am going to be calling that office on a regular basis when she makes any vote that would go against constitutional and conservative principles. And I'm going to make sure that I'm informing people of what those answers are that I get, but also of why these votes are bad. So I encourage you to pay attention. As much fun as video gaming is, and as much fun as Facebook is, and all these different things that take our attention away from our nation, I encourage you just to invest a few minutes a day in looking at what the current events are and in looking at what your congressperson is doing. Because 2018 will be here before you know it. And guess what? We need to, like I said, be using the primary elections to be really term limiting these people who don't care about their constituency. So I thank everyone for joining today. This has been a lot of fun. I look forward to our next episode. We are going to be doing things called Sound Smart Seconds. So it'll be, a minute to 2 minutes, so it's not really a second, obviously. And we're going to be doing them every morning, and they're going to be kind of water cooler talks where you can listen to on the way going into work or on your lunch break and hear about some of these things that are happening and a couple quick pieces, factual pieces of information that you can then use to, as Glenn Beck said, argue with idiots. I don't know if I'd go that far, even though it's probably true, but argue with people, especially liberals and progressives in our nation that absolutely have no idea most of the time why they believe what they believe, or they think they know why they believe what they believe, and it's actually a lie. So I look forward to everyone hopefully tuning into those every morning. They'll be Monday through Friday, and we will try to get one of these full-length podcasts up about once a week, maybe once every other week. So take care, folks, and liberty and justice for all. Appreciate it.